Good morning. Good morning. Today is the 11th of June. It's hard to believe that we've been in the house, some of us, at least under the concept of quarantine and staying back from each other for, you know, some up to 3 months. Even though we might go out to go grocery shopping, and some of us go out a little bit, stay a little bit longer and a little bit further in terms of what we have to do during the course of our outing. But today is, to me, an opportunity to talk about loss. We don't realize how much we've lost in the midst of our gaining our home time. But I just got up this morning and I was doing like an assessment of what loss is. And of course, as I know, and have done for some time, is that I generally write up my lesson that I'm going to speak on, or my subject matter, the night before, and then I try to sleep on it. And sometimes sleeping on it just gives me some clarity. When it says it elucidates in my mind, it illuminates some more things that I need to talk about. And so since today is the day where they're talking about loss, good morning, Lavender. We just want to talk about what loss is. And I just was thinking about loss. Some people during this time, they've lost loved ones. So death is certainly a loss. For other people, it may be a job, because the job market certainly had to go along the wayside because they weren't considered essential workers. So there was job loss. There was also losses in relationships because, sometimes when you can't be with people, their care for you, their love for you might wane a bit. So that could be a loss. You also talk about the loss of confidence. Many people have probably lost confidence during this time because sometimes they're not built up in their confidence unless they have other people around. So I'm speaking to you this morning. If you're one of those people, come on back. There's other people, even though it's virtual, that I'm talking to you on. I still want you to know that there's good, there's kindness, there's care, and just knowing that loss is just also temporary, because you have to look at it that way. You have to look at it, the fact that that same loss that you lost won't continue to be the loss that carries you forward. It may be something that weighs on you heavily. It may be something that sticks in your head and in your heart. Okay, because that's what loss does. Loss will wound us. Okay, but in most instances, it does not kill us. And anything else, it generally makes us stronger because we've gone through it. We can look back on it and say we made it through. So we also want to talk about loss of feeling safety. There's a lot of people that replaced what they were once confident in to now having fearful of. And so that's also a loss, the fact that you lost your confidence and you replaced it with a feeling of unsafetyness and fear. There's a loss of joy and a loss of happiness. And sometimes we have to be honest that that's the way it is. We do lose our joy. We do lose our happiness because sometimes people make us happy, or the jobs we had made us happy because it brought in money, and that gave us peace and some comfort knowing that at least this month's bills are paid. We understand that. We also want to talk about, the loss of care. For some people, I was watching something that did a reenactment yesterday. It absolutely frightened me. It was a reenactment of George Floyd's death by they were white, they were Caucasian men. I can't remember where it was, but I'm quite sure by now you should be able to Google it or find it on Facebook. But it was on the last evening's news, and it ostensibly showed them saying that this is what you will get, as they had somebody laying down on the ground with their leg on top of their neck. This is what you get when you basically, mess with us, I tell you, that certainly is a scary thing. It's certainly a scary thing that somebody would act it out. And they were acting it out in a very public location, and blowing horns. People were riding by saying, what is going on? But that's basically what they were doing. They had up signs and everything. So to me, that would say that their care about others isn't available to us. It's not available to other people who just want to know that just living, they can live their lives the way they want to, and it's okay. That it just absolutely shocked me. I was just too much over that. The interesting thing is that many of the young people, good morning, Jean, many of the young people of our country and in all other many other parts of the world are doing the same thing, where they're just doing an uprising to say this, enough is enough. We've had enough of this. This is ridiculous, to stand on things that really symbolize the hatred, the enslavement, the less than idea that people were not and can never be equal based on how they look. To me, that's just a really wonderful thing to see, that the young people are saying we got to do it differently going forward. We cannot continue to do what we've been doing. And so to me, all those things that I've mentioned talk about loss. And so loss is sometimes it's a heavy thing to carry on, especially if you can't resolve it to make it be better, and so, a loss in many instances is also the death of not just a person, but the concepts, the ideas, the projects, the people, everything just kind of falls, and where it falls, it's gone, So how do you deal with that? So I as I do, I have a couple of poems. Good morning. I do want to say, are you stuck? Yes, we are all stuck. We all get stuck on things, on people, on how we're being treated. We get stuck on those things. Those things become painful, and we can feel the loss over them. We really and truthfully can, especially if it's something that we go into every single day. Every single day. We hear the same things. We see the same things, and nothing ever changes. And so to me, that would certainly speak to our loss and the possibility that sometimes we do get stuck. So today's poems, the first one it's called Token Loss by Kay Ryan. It says, to the dragon, any loss is total. His rest is disrupted if a single jewel encrusted goblet has been stolen. The circle of himself in the nest of his gold has broken. No loss is token. No loss. Every loss that we go through is important. That is by Kay Ryan. Token Loss is what it's called. And the second poem is by Robert Frost. Once again, I'm back. Yesterday, I think I did Emily Dickinson, and I've done Browning. I tried to let you know that sometimes I can go back to school with you. I take you there. Sometimes I can. Sit down, Gucci. The dog is running around. I don't know why. He already ate. He's had a good day. Yes, Lavender. I'm talking about Gucci. The other one says, Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. It says, nature's first green is gold. Her hand set hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Interesting. That's the whole concept of looking at the greenery that we see. It is pretty day where I'm at. I'm looking outside my window here, and it talks about basically when you see a leaf on a tree or a leaf on a flower, whatever, it cannot stay. So it's only there temporarily. Okay, so you really look at the fact that even loss cannot stay. It's got to have its period where it comes in, it does what it's going to do, it breaks your heart, it saddens you, it gives you great grief. You walk through it. And eventually it becomes a memory of sadness, a memory of grief, but it's not current. Eventually, whatever was, that's what it was. Whatever is, was. Whatever was, that's what it was. Period. All right, so the next area I have to talk to, I'm going to break it down. We're going to speak to loss. And it says, the fact or process of losing something or someone. That is our loss. And sometimes we don't even acknowledge that we've had a loss. Sometimes we have so much stuff we don't know that we've lost anything. In fact, people can come in and steal and we don't know what's been taken. You know what I'm talking about. So loss really talks about a disappearance, a losing, a forfeiture, a disruption, a depletion, and an erosion. All those speak to what loss is to us. All of it. And loss is one that some people can never speak to it because it's so devastating to them. And that's how we know how human we are, when we realize that loss was a big loss. That loss was a heavy loss. Like when you see where elderly people are losing a lot of their money by scamming. Loss. Big loss. Or people didn't know that a family member was sick, but they're taken suddenly, by the coronavirus or whatever else. Heart attack, stroke. Big loss, Or, you go on to school and you never finish, and it's always a craving to do. But because when you were in school, too many other things were going on, and so that remains a loss until you finish. Until you finish. So losses are just, what I call occurrences that strike us. They strike us heavily, or they strike us to the point where we can't get around them. They just remain a heavy weight on us, And sometimes a heavy weight just becomes that. It not only comes being heavy to us, but it's too heavy for us. And it weights us down, and it weights us down, it weights us down. And pretty soon we're consumed by whatever it was, the grief of it, the agony of it, the pain of it, the sorrow of it. It all becomes our loss that we live in. So we live in our loss. We're stuck. We live in that loss. And so when you break down the word and you start with the L, it talks about being limited. It says being restricted in size, the amount, the extent, the few, the small, or the short, or it's not great in the ability or talent, meaning it's lost some things. It's lost the ability to rise. It's lost the ability to be seen. It's lost the ability to be understood. It's lost the ability to be appreciated. Why? It's minimized. It's limited. And sometimes that's what we do to ourselves when we've experienced a loss. We become invisible. We become limited. We become diminished. We become tiny. We become, invisible. We're just not there. We're not there anymore. We've lost it. And sometimes you can see when a husband and wife have been together for, 60 years, 70 years. And when one leaves this earth, the other one is either 1 or 2 or 3 hours later. Maybe they'll hold on a day, but generally they're going to seek, what God gave them as a mate. And that was, their hearts were together. Their hearts were together. So you just know what loss will do unless you pay attention to it. But I was watching it. I saw it on TV 2 weeks ago, where the husband died from coronavirus and the wife died, I think, like maybe 3 hours later. So we just never know. We never know how we're going to leave here, but we do know that for somebody it will be a loss, or somebody's it will be a loss. Great loss. So limited talks about being restricted, talks about being finite, being little, being tight, being meager, being insubstantial, being insufficient, and being poor. All those things speak to what the limitedness of loss does for us. It just makes us smaller. It makes us, kind of timid to come back out. We don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to function, how to work, how to move forward. And so that would be, yes, I am. I am stuck right now because those things are weighing heavily on me. The next letter is O, and for O I put obscure. And obscure is not discovered or known about. It's uncertain. And so when we really look at what loss does, it makes us uncertain. It puts us sometimes in doubt. There's a dubiousness about it. It's mysterious. Sometimes something happens and we become strange. And sometimes that happens because the situation was strange. Maybe how somebody died, or maybe how, the job selection was formed, or maybe how the relationship broke up. All those things make it where there's some obscurity to it. You can't quite figure it out. So it gives you a period of wandering around in your head. What happened? There's a loss there. So it talks about it being vague and hazy, concealed and hidden. All those things talk about what loss can do to us. It can make us all of those things, everything. It just puts us in a position of unpreparedness. We're just not prepared for discussing what happened, or we're too caught up in what happened to not wait, calm down, and figure out how it happened. And sometimes those things can never be answered, because they may go when the situation goes, when the death occurs, or when that's why I'm always talking about, I tell everybody that I love them, just in case I don't make it up tomorrow morning. You can always say, well, Sandy always said that. That's how I do. That's to me important enough that I'm going to tell you that I love you now, just in case today is my last day. I'm hoping it's not, but my prayer is that God He gave me this to do. He still has given me things to do. But sometimes we don't know. In the middle of our doing is in the middle of our death. In the middle of our doing is right at the time we're going to leave, or not be able to complete something because something else became more important. So that's looking at the obscureness of a loss. The other thing, the first S in loss is for the sadness. When you really look at loss, there is great sadness there. It's affected by unhappiness or grief, sorrowfulness, mournfulness, or a feeling of sadness because of that loss. So when you think about loss, a lot of times there is sadness, there is sorrow. There is sorrow. It also talks about it being, a dejection. Just something happened that you feel dejected over how it went down. There's regret. And that's why I say, if you talk to people ahead of time and let them know how you really feel, then there doesn't have to be any regret. There's depression, there's misery, there's despondency, there's despair, and there's melancholy. All those things speak to what sadness can bring, and as it is related to our loss or our losses. Because I don't think we just have one loss. Everybody knows that. We have multiple losses, and we will have multiple losses throughout our lives, period. That is life. We will experience great happiness, we will experience great joy, and then we will experience great sorrow. And my grandmother always used to say, if you live long enough, you're going to feel some other stuff. If you live long enough, you're going to go through some stuff. But she always used to say, but it makes you stronger. It makes you stronger, because then you know that you can handle things that you hadn't handled before, you know. And the last letter in the S, which is the S for loss, is sorrow. And it says a feeling of deep distress caused by loss and disappointment or misfortune suffered by oneself or others. So right now, to me, the pandemic has formed great loss for a lot of people over a lot of things. You know, it could be the closeness of others. It could be not getting to be able to really funeralize people properly, as we've always done in the American culture and other cultures as well, to make sure that we go and we give them some kind of service of recognition, memorial in instances, or we give them an actual funeral where we come out and, you know, there's food and there's, you know, they're eulogized and the whole full Monty. But in this instance, going through pandemic, that's not been something that's been really dealt with. You know, it can't be only because of the pandemic, only because of the spread of the virus. Now, you know, I know if you watched, you know, George Floyd's funeral the other day, they gave up all intentions of trying to not be close. They were extremely social, extremely close, with hugging, and some, even though they had on masks, they were really close. You know, I just purchased a mask that, and it says, if you can read this, it says you're too close. And it has a little funniness to it, but I saw it someplace and I saw the wording and I said, that's what I want on a mask. And sure enough, I got one made. But the point is that I have to go out today. And so my intention is, and I know a lot of the people that I'm going to meet today, there's only about maybe 15 of us, 20 that actually assemble. They can be over there and I'll be over here, but I do wear my mask. So sometimes we just never know. Good morning, T, and Miss Rosie, Valda. We just never know. Kiwanis, good morning. We just never know. And my niece, I'm just going through these. It used to spin up by itself. It doesn't do that anymore. I don't know what happened. I'm going to have to get on Facebook. Say, hey, look, what y'all doing? Quit pushing those new changes forward and not making some of the things that work well still work. But anyway, I think the excitement is that we have an opportunity to deal with what this loss has done to us. And we can also say what it is doing for us. For some people, some of the losses that they lost were actually good. I'm just saying. You know, because they didn't have the ability to say no, having the time to sit to what I call composite your own thoughts, come up with your own way forward, looking at, you know, your ability to say, hey, I read, I'm writing, I'm doing something that is not just beneficial for myself, but beneficial for anybody that I come in contact after. That certainly would speak to what the loss of the socializing aspect of our lives has done through this pandemic. So anyway, here's my questions for today. And you know what? You can always write in the thread. Thank you, Kiwanis, for saying I love you. I love you too. You know, and anybody else, you can certainly write in the thread, and I'll try to push it up to just tell me what your loss has been. In fact, write down a loss that you've had. You don't have to write the circumstances around it, but if you've experienced loss of any kind, put it in the thread. And also, I do have to make sure I mention that I appreciate it when you share my videos, and anybody can go to YouTube and find all of them collectively, or you can just come to my page, both Winnie and Associates LLC, which is my company, or you can just do it by my name, which is Sandra Gary Winborn, PhD. You can do it that way on Facebook. Either of those ways work. But here's today's questions. Besides the quarantine, have you experienced having any real limits as it relates to loss? What has happened? What did happen? These are for you. They're not directly for me. They're just for you to have in your ability to say what you wrote down in your notes today. Question of number 2. Are there things in your life through loss that have caused you to be obscure? Meaning you don't want to talk about it. You want to stay away from it. You're convinced that, there would never be any resolution to it, and therefore you become invisible about that subject or that person or that situation. Write it in. Question number 3. What do you do with your sadness? What do you do with it? Do you hold on to it? I mean, I think there's a lot of people that walk around and they smile, but they're sad inside. They're real. So therefore that would be a put on, because they really have sadness, great sadness, So what do you do with it? Do you write about it? Do you write it down? Do you talk to people about it? Or you just hold on to it? Some people hold on to sadness. I had a friend once, and she told me the greatest loss she ever had was not her parents, but it was her child. Because she said the order was wrong. I was supposed to be gone before my child left. And so she said that will always be her greatest sadness. So sometimes you just have to understand that our losses may be something that hangs with us just like a window shade. It hangs, it's there. We know it's there. We try to pull it up and it may still come down on us. And some things may trigger it, death may trigger another, what I call revisit to what's going on, to what hurts, to what has you in anguish, because a lot of times we can just deal with stuff that comes up only certain parts of the year. Maybe somebody passed away. Like my dad passed away on July 6th. And, every time as we're approaching July 2nd, I'm like, okay. Now I can get into the holiday and everything, but it always triggers the fact that he was on his way to his death, and I didn't know it. I just remember him leaving the house, having had a second stroke, and them taking him, and he was trying to talk to me, the baby. I was the one that always sat and had my dad in stitches and talking about things, and he'd laugh, and I would always kept his spirit up, because that was my dad's second stroke once that took him out. But the first stroke, I just saw him be debilitated. And I remember my sadness for my dad. I remember the loss of my dad being this pillar man, just wonderfully sweet. And he was a big man, but he was so gentle, so kind. Except the day I stepped on his foot by accident, and he had gout. And he had a bad day of gout. It was a bad period of gout. And I stepped on his foot, and he yelled at me. My father never yelled. He yelled at me, and I urinated on myself. Sorry for the grossness of it, but oh my God, I was just in shock that he did that. But he said he was in great pain. So I was the one that was always pretty close to my dad, because I was the baby, and I was truly a dad's girl. But then after my dad left, I became a mom's girl. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to love. I wanted somebody to love me. So sometimes we just realize, good morning, that when we're going through something, good morning, Latoya, we just understand that we want what we want. We want what we want. We want what we need. And I just wanted my dad. So I always had great sadness. Not so much now because it's been so long. And since then, my mother's died. In fact, all of my siblings, except there's only 3 of us left now out of 10. So 7 are gone. So I've experienced loss. I've experienced sadness. I've experienced being limited about, how I felt about things, or things weren't settled up or whatever. So where I'm at now is that I'm trying to just live my life as well as I can. And I don't let the sadness, I don't let the sorrow, I don't let being the limited becoming the only thing I focus on. And I really try my best to not be obscure. That's what I try to do. And the last question is, when have you experienced the most sorrow in your life? For me, it was my dad, my parents leaving, and my sister Shirley. The other ones I was close to, yes. But we all lived all over the country. California, New York City, Buffalo. We just lived in different portions of the country. And understand, my older siblings were, they were old enough to be my parents by the time my parents got together and had us. So therefore, that was we were almost like 2 separate families that were joined, but we all had the same mother. And we never seen that. We were always raised as family, period. Your brother in New York, your brother in California, your sister in California. We were just all over the place. But I think those were probably my saddest losses were my parents and some of my siblings. It was just, devastating that they weren't going to be around anymore. My brother Bob was the best cook in the world, and he was really, really thin, and he could dance. Oh my God, he could dance. Like hand dancing, that boy could get down. And he could turn you, he could do all of those kind of stuff, and he was just as thin as he could be, and the ladies loved him. And he was Army. He was Army. My brother Eddie was Army as well. My brother Ronnie was Army. So they all went Army. Nobody went Navy. I married Navy, but they were Army. But anyway, that's the tale for today on loss. The fact that we all going to experience it. We all must learn how to live with it, and how to understand that once the person is gone, that we can live without them if it's a person, or if it's a situation that we can't go back and correct it. Like I always talk about, the whole "Are You Stuck?" is based on the principle about you can't change nothing that already happened. You cannot do anything with it. As much as you'd like to, you can't do anything with it. If people mistreated you, they mistreated you. If you didn't get the job, you didn't get the job. If the love broke off, the love broke off. Now, maybe sometimes people come back and they say, look, I was wrong. And then they say, I was wrong. Okay, we're going to try this again. Maybe that'll be all right. But then again, still what's in the past was in the past. You all have to deal with that, And then, of course, if you're in a position where you can make something better going forward, then that's what you should do. Do not concentrate on your losses. Just understand that we're all going to have them. Understand that they are what they are, and we can't change. We can't change them. We can change our way of how we feel about things as they relate to loss going forward. So as I said, the whole thing of loss is to really look at how we feel about it. How it limits us, how it makes us obscure, how it delves into our sadness, and also helps us understand, and sometimes not so much understand, our sorrow. But those are losses. But I don't want you to be lost again. Tomorrow I want you to come back. Come back for another day with Are You Stuck? With Sandy Winborn. You can go to my YouTube channel, or you can certainly come back to Facebook Live. I'm going to be on here at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. Those are my times. I appreciate you coming. I really am ecstatic about the fact that you stopped. I love it that you stayed, and I even love it more if you make this one that you will share. Have a great day. I appreciate your kindness. I really, really do. Love you. Bye-bye.